chance you can do something amazing to feel your passion blazing and shine.
Paint with every vision, dance in new directions, explode to new heights in your mind.
I will rise up with you today.
Lift up my voice.
Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Reverend David Alexander. I am your host today for AGNT Speaks. We come to you every Wednesday, Association for Global New Thought, to bring you mindful conversations with great thought leaders from our leadership body and around the country and the world. Again, my name is David Alexander. I'm the spiritual director at the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta and a proud member of the AGNT Leadership Council. And my host, I'm the host, and my guest today is the Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell. She's the founding minister of the Unity Center in San Diego, California, and a longtime member of AGNT Leadership Council as well. I believe vice chair, vice president for a number of years, and just an absolute wonderful person. And they have launched a new work that we are so excited to tell you about today, that was really birthed out of their own organic work and continued growing in consciousness, that many might say can be traced back to the work that AGNT has its roots in, which is really looking at how to embody these principles and carry them into the world through the lens of their social implication. So let me introduce Reverend Wendy, and let's talk about this wonderful new work that she has going on in San Diego. Wendy, so good to see you.
Good to see you too, David. It's been a while, too long, but great to connect around this essentially important topic. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So tell us about this new work coming out of your center, the AntiRacism Institute.
Yeah, so the AntiRacism Institute is now its own independent nonprofit, but it was in fact birthed out of the work that started rather organically, but with great passion through the Unity Center. And it began really with a conversation that a dear friend of mine and I had quite a number of years ago. His name is Jimmer Bolden. And we were friends for many, many years, traveled together, skied together. Our families were and are close. Jimmer is a Black man. And for some reason, one day after many years of friendship, we found ourselves in a conversation about race. Mm-hmm. And though we had been friends for so many years, David, I'd never brought the topic up in a very direct and deliberate way, and neither had Jimmer. But all of a sudden, we found ourselves in a deep conversation, and I found myself totally shocked by how much I didn't know about racism, really. I mean, I was brought up that the goal was to be colorblind. And so I felt I was colorblind with my dear close friend, and never ever realized that his lived experience was very different than mine until he shared in that conversation a business experience, or an experience he had while on a business trip, driving while Black, leaving his hotel, forgetting his driver's license back in a hotel room, and being earnest in getting right back to the hotel, making sure he could get his driver's license before proceeding to travel. And I said, wait a minute, I don't understand that. I would never have thought to go back and get my driver's license. I might drive super carefully, right? So we found ourselves in a conversation that was very, very deep and very humbling, David, for me to realize just how much I didn't know that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And then a few years passed, and the Charlottesville riots of 2017, the Unite the Right riots, mm-hmm. troubled me deeply, mm-hmm. so much so that I reached out to the Black members in our community. And I said, would you be willing to come and sit with me? would you help me understand and explore what we might do with the cross section of our spiritual practice, the resources that the Unity Center has? How can we begin to make a difference? And that invitation to my Black members resulted in a 6-month period with them, meeting in my home once a month for 6 months at 3 and 4 hours at a pop, with me sitting, asking questions and learning even more just how much I didn't know. And then, as a result of that in-depth 6-month period of time with them, we found ourselves in the question, well, what do we do? Okay, now what do we actually do? And to a person in that circle, every one of my Black members said to me, you need to start sitting with the white people in our church, and you need to get together and discover what you didn't know you didn't know. And then, of course, we began to do that work for another almost 2 years. We sat in circle in my home, just our white members, to deeply and humbly explore and become much more, not just racially aware, but racially literate, to learn the racial history, to increase our understanding of the Black lived experience. And then, of course, in May of 2020, with the murder of George Floyd, that just catapulted our work to where it is today.
Wow. Wow. First of all, I mean, the first thing that occurs to me just in reflection on that is what grace was extended to you by the African-American members of your community to field that request, which, frankly, is a request that people of color in this country get often, right? Come sit with me, come explain it to me, come, like, I don't get it, like, what did you mean by that? And there is often, rightly so, a pushback to that request from white folks. It's like, no, go, and what they did eventually with you, which is like, no, go educate yourself, come back when you've learned something, then we'll have a more educated conversation, but don't depend on me to spoon feed this information to you. But they did give you, perhaps through your position in the center and their trust and relationship with you over the years as a great spiritual leader, they said, all right, let's do this. This is a spiritual leader whose heart's in the right place and wants to have this conversation. So that, I think, is just remarkable. And so kudos to each of them. And then for them to redirect you and say, okay, now the next step, before you get too heady about, you're going to go off and start doing workshops and doing this stuff, right? Which is what we as ministers want to do, right? We learn something and then we want to go share it with other people, right? It's like, no, slow down, go get your people, go get your people. And so that's just great, because that's exactly what needs to happen.
Oh, David, I remember sitting in that circle in my home with them, horrified when they said, you need to stand before your congregation and you need to say, calling all white people. They said, what do you mean? I want to bring us together. He said, not so fast, not so fast. No. You need to sit in circle and don't, just as you said, don't turn to us to educate you. You need to go get educated. You need to have some deep, vulnerable conversations. You need to look at your own biases. You need to have your eyes open in ways that they haven't been opened before, in a safe place. So you don't censor yourself. So you don't feel like that you don't really go deep enough because you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing.
Right. And so I imagine you did some book studies and, some diving in with some material like that.
Absolutely. And so we pulled together a variety of videos at that time and materials produced by Black voices to educate ourselves on so much of what we didn't know. We studied Ibram Kendi's books. We did a lot of deep dive. But what was just as important as the information, because the information was absolutely important, but so was being together in a safe place, starting off in a safe place, to really get real and to really peel back what we sometimes hide behind in New Thought, in our spiritual practice, and that is, well, we're all one. I don't see color. I'm loving. I have Black friends. I may even be partnered with a Black person, but we have to peel back that
Yeah.
and understand a lot more.
Yeah. And to create that safe space, or I would even say courageous space amongst each other, again, in a way that doesn't position people of color as our free unpaid teachers, is so
Right.
important because the first thing we want to do, as you did, you want to gather maybe an integrated group because you want to demonstrate solidarity and let's be in this together. But then you end up, what happens is the people of color end up tending to the fragility of the white folks and the scales that have to fall from their eyes and the journey that they have to go on. And it is a journey to go, oh my God, I didn't realize what I didn't know. And oh my gosh, and I've been carrying this, and all the feelings that they have about that. And which is, sometimes inappropriate to process those feelings at the feet of a person of color who's been living this their whole life. Yeah. So, wow.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of a recent conversation I had on this topic with Reverend Kevin Ross. And we were talking about some of the work that the Anti-Racism Institute is doing. And I was sharing with him how some people really get it, the invitation or the request of my Black members that you white folks need to go do some work first before we come together. And the reason for that, and it's not at all to coddle white people, it's to make sure that as white people, number one, we're not looking to our Black brothers and sisters to educate us. And number two, that we can go deeper and not censor ourselves, and that we can do better in white space. And I remember Kevin saying to me very recently, another reason that is important as a preparatory step, white people doing their work in white space first before coming together in mixed company, so to speak, is that you don't want the first conversation to be the last conversation.
That's good. Yeah.
Isn't that good?
Yeah,
You want to be able to build the trust, and
Yep.
that takes some time and some deep work before you can step into that space.
Excellent. Well, that is amazing. So tell me now, what is the Institute offering? How are you branching out and expanding this work?
So one of the things that makes the work that the Institute is doing different from what might be more typically looked at as traditional DEI training is we don't look at the work that we're doing as training. It's not a course that you go and you just get information and then you're more knowledgeable. The work that we're doing really is experiential and transformative. And so the flagship program that we have is called Unpacking Race and Racism 2.0. And some of the things about this program, it really is the evolution of what happened very organically and very authentically at the Unity Center at the direction of our Black members. And that is that you need to go do your inner work first. But where the Unpacking Race and Racism program is quite different than much of the DEI training approach that's out there is it's a much longer program. It is a 7-week program, 90 minutes in a group, a pod, we call them, a 90-minute segment in a pod, where it is led by a trained facilitator. And that facilitator is not a DEI expert. It's all done in white space. But the content builds upon and draws upon the work of Emmanuel Acho and his uncomfortable conversations with the Black man.
Yes.
That's used to introduce an authentic Black voice into the space, because as white facilitators facilitating a conversation, a safe place, we can't speak directly to the Black lived experience. We don't have it. So we don't try to do that. But we do know how, through the many programs we run now, to create a container that is safe for deep dialogue and exploration that leads to transformation of mind or consciousness, and transformation of heart. But from the very beginning, we have stood on the principle that it's not enough to become racially aware and to be color brave, to use words of Melody Hobson's. And it's not even enough to also become more racially literate. If we really care about racial equity, then we as white people have to look for and be about working with our Black brothers and sisters in how do we share the power that still resides too much at the hands of exclusively white people. And so there are two key components in our program that I think are unique and very important. And one is what we call our racial equity projects. And these are actually a requirement of anyone who participates in our experiential programs like Unpacking Race and Racism. It is not just enough to sit in that circle and do that deep work. There's homework. And then beyond that, I think it's usually in the third session, we introduce the concept of a racial equity project. They already know on the front end, they're going to be expected to come up with a racial equity project. We don't tell them what that has to be. We give them some ideas and examples of what others have done. And it comes out of the person's unique life experiences and their skills and talents. And so, for example, these racial equity projects run a wide gamut from something as simple but meaningful as a mom choosing to buy a collection of Black children's books and educating her white children on a Black child's lived experience, all the way to bigger, bolder projects, such as one of our graduates from our programs works in the mortgage lending industry. And for the last almost year now, I believe, he has been working with other mortgage lenders to educate them on the disparity in the housing and lending industry.
Good.
So, right, it comes out of the individual's skills and never from the place of the white savior concept, never from the place that we know what the problem is and we're going to come in and fix it. It's, there are problems. How can we lend our hands to them, to solving them? So that's a racial equity project. And there are about 150 of them that are ongoing now as a result of the programs.
Wow.
And then the other element, and then I'll let you jump in, but the other element is the, you can tell we're passionate and devoted to the work and have been for a while, is the core competencies that graduates from the Unpacking program are trained in some core competencies as white people so that we can more authentically partner with our Black brothers and sisters. So I'm just giving you a whole bunch of information.
That's wonderful. I love every bit of it. And I hope people are picking up on, and I maybe want to steer the conversation is what I'm hearing is the application of this work through a New Thought lens. And I think that's really important because I think it's important for people who would be viewing AGNT Speaks today or sharing it and coming across it, people who connected to our New Thought communities and are familiar with our philosophy. And I think the message that we have to deliver over and over again is, why is this important, and how does the New Thought lens contribute to the amplification of solutions that can be birthed? Because as you said, beyond awareness, right? Becoming more aware of the lived Black experience. That's a very good thing. Doing book studies, gosh, there's tons of books out there now, so that's great. But more than awareness and even advocacy, it's about understanding how consciousness works. Right, as that's at the core of our common New Thought ancestry, is we're people of consciousness. We understand that there's a universal law of mind in operation, and that we can participate and direct and redirect the operation of that law of mind to benefit not just our individual life, but all life and our collective experience. And so applying that in a place where the experience is not optimal. The experience is not a world that works for everyone. Understanding that that condition is a manifestation of previous operations of the law of mind in action, right? People thought that some people were superior than others, or thought whatever they thought that led to this. But now you and I can take a new thought and move it in a new direction. I think that that's just so critical. Yeah. So thank you.
Right. Oh, you're welcome. Well, it is about, that's why it's not, we work really hard to say this isn't a training. This isn't a class.
Yeah.
It is really a transformative experience, and transformation happens at the level of consciousness and
Right.
heart, but then it's got to exude from our bodies, right?
It's got to be embodied.
We've got to
Yeah.
move our feet. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
very good, very good. Wow. Well, I want to make sure we get the website in there, how people can learn more and all of that. So let's do that now. It's the AntiRacism Institute. Tell us where we find you.
Well, it is the AntiRacism Institute.org.
.org.
Right. Our program, our flagship program, Unpacking Race and Racism 2.0, begins the week of April 24th. People can go onto the website to get information. They can register. Almost all of the pods or groups are meeting virtually, but there are a few that will be meeting in person, and the registration page and link will give folks that information and that detail. So there will be, I believe there's close to 20 different pods that are being offered, different time zones, different days of the week. Again, they're on Zoom. There's a trained facilitator who's already been through the program. In fact, David, I didn't mention this earlier, but we were very successful in bringing the program also into a corporate setting. So the program and the process is a very sound and solid process. And I really have to give thanks to our Black members that really were the shaping force behind the program that we now call Unpacking Race and Racism. We don't have it put together yet, but we are in conversation about our next programs, looking at what we're calling a Black track. Our Black members have said to us, we need a space to get together in private too, and be able to talk about some of these painful things. And David, one of the greatest privileges I had in those early days with our Black members wasn't just that they were willing to talk to me, but over the period of the months that we were together, it almost felt as though there was such a guardedness among them even that was let down. And I felt that I was invited into a very authentic witness of their pain and anger and frustration with the result of racism. And so they have said to us, we also need to look at what is needed in the Black community. And that's not for us white people to figure out, but we can support it happening. And then how do we create something that we call can happen in brave space, where once there's a certain level of awareness and literacy and core competencies among white allies, how can we really come together in a trustworthy way and continue the work?
Wow, that's great. So many things to follow up on. I want to point out, I really love your use of the word partnership. I know ally gets used a lot, and that's used a lot in trainings and things, and it's good. I think of ally as a, you've talked a lot about work that white people have to identify for themselves and do themselves, and work that Black people have to identify for themselves. And ally kind of falls into that category. It's like a title. And it's like, I don't think I can call myself an ally, no matter how much I read or how many programs I do or how many certificates I have on my wall. I think it's a title that now, if my Black congregants or friends or colleagues, if they call me an ally, right, it's because they see the work that I'm doing. And I'll gladly accept the title, right? I'll gladly, humbly, but I won't actively go out and use it myself, right? But partnership, I think, is a great word. I'm an advocate, partnership. So I love that you're doing that. And the the value of, I just want to put out a couple of resources there. One, we're partnering with a group from the Oakland area. They're launching an app. It's live now in Google and Apple Play stores called Blackfulness. And it's all about mindfulness, meditation, mental health awareness. It's designed by people of color, but not exclusively for people of color. So I use it as well. I use the daily meditations and guides in it, but it's geared towards people of color and those in that lived experience. And I have some share of that with my family. And it's just interesting to hear meditations and affirmations and mental health, which is a huge issue. You know, the experience that you had with your friend Jimmer about going back. I mean, I did that the other day. I left my house without my wallet and I didn't go back and get it. Right? I thought I drove carefully, but I didn't. And my wife and I, for those who don't know, she's from Africa. She's from Zambia. And her and I were talking the other day, and, you know, we're going to be traveling internationally later this spring, and she's always looking at, you know, her what's next and, you know, retirement and different things like that, even though she's younger than me. And so she talked about where she might want to go and next phase of life after the kids are done with school, etc. And she's like, you know, I would love to live in a place where I don't have this on my back, where I don't have to worry, you know. And what we got into it was sometimes we talk about career stuff, and she said, you know, I thought about going through the training and signing up to be a police officer. And immediately I was concerned, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I've done all this work with police departments and racial justice and whatnot. And it was like, you know, I said, it's a job where you walk out the door and you don't know whether you're coming home or not. Because of, you know, all the danger that you're putting yourself in. You don't know what might crop up that day, et cetera. And I said, this, you know, it's just a lot of, and she looked at me and she was like, yeah, so. She's like, I have that every day living in this country.
Yeah.
She goes, that's the reason I thought about it. I thought, well, maybe I can do this because I'm already doing that. And that was, if you know, so for me, with all the reading and all the everything I've done, I stumble into these conversations all of the time where I'm like, oh, there it is again. There's my white lens, right? There's my filter that I've got to check, and I've got to go, wait, oh my goodness, of course you do. Of course you have that every day. And I don't.
Right.
Like, wow.
Right.
Yeah, we have so much work to do. So thank you for doing your work. Please, everyone, check out the resource, AntiRacismInstitute.org. I mentioned the Blackfulness app. Definitely check that out. It's a tremendous resource. And just right there on your phone, daily meditations and mindfulness practices and exercises. That's based out of a group in Oakland, California. And I'll just mention one more selfishly, because maybe the Institute could use it. But our ministry last year produced a work called The 12 Steps of Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness. It's a 12-step lens of looking at anti-racism work and examining the filter of whiteness that us Caucasian folks walk around with. So it's a workbook style exercise. It has the 12 steps written again towards anti-racism work, and checking and examining those and using the steps, similar to your institute, using the steps to actually go through one by one and do the work. So there you go. Thank you, Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell. Thank you, the AntiRacism Institute. Thank you for all your work and your dedication to AGNT over the years, to the New Thought movement, and to taking it to the next level. We need this, we need you. And I hope a lot of people sign up for this work and support your center.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Again, this has been AGNT Speaks. We come to you every Wednesday. Please, if you're moved by what's happening here, please go to agnt.today and become a member, contribute monthly, whatever is on your heart to do to support the work of AGNT. We'll keep bringing you valuable resources, conversations, and work through the curriculum and other activities that AGNT offers. Have a great day, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.